Hey, boss, how's it
Everybody!
going?
Hi, Sean. This is a good start to our first virtual pub session. Now, I hope you've brought your beer.
Oh,
This is
mate,
the most important part.
very something cold and beautiful to crack. The Iron Jack, very
Hold
crisp,
on.
very beautiful. What's that? Oh, that's the
That's
Stonewoods.
it's called the Stonewood. I don't know if you can see it very well, but now you can. You actually introduced me to it when we went for a walk in the Butterwain. So it's been a really good staple of mine.
Being a favorite of forward driving, I got to know this one. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. We should cheers to each other once we get back after these isolations.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I hope
How's it
if
going?
yeah, look, going really, really well. What about yourself?
Sunny and beautiful here, mate. It's great, great day to meet.
Yeah, it
And
is.
thanks for joining.
It's been great. I'm looking forward to many of these sessions. So let's get cracking. And greetings to everyone who's watching it. Thanks for joining us. We're going to run these regular, I was going to say podcasts, but they're not podcasts. They're the virtual pub sessions about various interesting topics around the subject of insider risk, insider threat. And today is no exception. Oh, yeah, I can see you're already starting on the good stuff.
Oh
So
yeah, mate.
let's start with you, Sean. Give me some of your background and what got you into this insider risk business to start off with? What's your background?
Oh yeah, well, that should be exciting. I actually didn't talk about that for quite a while. We go back in time 25 years ago when I just joined the army. So my background is from Israel, and the army is a compulsory, the service there. And I joined a very special intelligence force unit that was specializing in the people. It's called the human. Uh, um, and we were specializing in recruiting people from the other side of the border. Just forget right, accurate, and important information. Um, and the fun part in that fucking call it the fun was that the fact that we were well being a kid, being an 18 and 19 years old, it was all about it was like a game for us, finding, allocating, identifying those people who had special needs, whether it was financial or it was a medical need or to help to some one of their family members, or even whether they had some weird ideology to betray their country. But our job was to find those people, make a friend with them, be friendly, and then fine tune them and program them, changing their behavior so they would basically betray their country and provide us with very valuable information. So yeah, that was like 4 years on the service, and I can't go really much into details, but I can tell you that, mate, we took people and it was like a play-doh in our hands. We changed them, we made them friends, and actually some of them actually we brought them even into Israel as citizens after they finished their job. So fun, after 4 years in duty, I left the army and I just got into different roles and at work. Found myself coming to Australia after a few years, and funny enough, I started to sell vacuum cleaners. So I took my people intelligence skills and I applied them on vacuum cleaner sales.
Yeah,
In fact,
talk
it
about
was a
going
great.
from extremes.
Oh man, no, it was a clean up a mess, whether it was
Yeah,
in the army or outside. But the fun part was that that particular vacuum cleaner was sold only in home demonstrations. So I had to go knock on doors every night. Just went on off the streets and knock on doors and got into houses where people didn't even know what I was selling. And the whole deal there was changing their mindset and convincing people that never heard about that technology to buy it and pay $4,000 for a vacuum cleaner at the end of the night, which was great. So that was like a game, psychology game. After a
yeah,
few years in that business, I went back to Israel and I decided to combine my technology background, which I'm after duty, I finished software engineering, and it's psychological sales. So I found myself eventually dealing with the human behavior and technology. So that's why we're here. We're talking about the human element. And
Sounds
came to
good.
Australia after a few years, met you, and we started to work together. And I can tell to everybody now, it's fun. It's really fun. What about
Excellent.
yourself?
So, myself, so I got a long story back, and I probably don't have the time to do it on this video cast, but I'll give you a bit of a background. So, you know, most kids when they go to university wonder, you know, what should I do? What profession should I do? And at that time, when I finished my year 12 degree, they said, look, there's three key professions you can do that are highly in demand. One of them is economics, the other one is accounting or commerce, and the other one is computer science. I'm going, well, I just couldn't see myself doing economics or accounting. So that's how I started in computer science. But the computer science back then was all about programming on VAX machines and PDP-11s. I don't know if some of you guys know about it, but I came out as being a programmer, but I just couldn't see myself as being a programmer. So I wanted to have more that tactile relationship, business connection. And there was also a burning desire for me to understand what makes a business successful. Why can one person go from with very little, nothing, no money, and create a really successful business? What makes Tiger Woods being the best golfer? What makes Roger Federer being the best tennis player? And so there's always a burning desire to understand me. What makes me tick? Well, you know, why do I behave in a certain way? Why am I afraid of failure? And it's like everyone's going through the same route. So I really had to understand me so that I can make the business successful. So basically, I got involved in learning what we term as neuro-linguistic programming. And you can use neuro-linguistic programming, which is the study of human behavior, in various different areas. You can use it for health, you can use it for education. But for me, it was all about me. I really wanted to understand what made me tick. And so by going through the program, by being certified, by going over the years and studying and learning and reading, I became more and more aware about what makes people tick. And in the same time, I already had a business that looked at security. But the problem with security is how long is a piece of string? You could look at security from a penetration tester, from an auditor. For me, I suddenly realized that why not combine both areas? So being a cyber expert, but also being a people expert. And so now the risk from people became so much more interesting because I knew that I could actually really, really help organizations about mitigating. So that's sort of a long story short, but basically gives us sort of a good background. So now that we've done that, what I want to ask is the basics. It's the basic. What is insider threat to you? What does it mean to you?
Well, you know, it's funny enough, but in my background, I recruited insider threats. So I learned that from the other side of the equation. We found people that they had different motivations, different goals, aspirations, ideology, different problems. In majority, we help people with financial problems or bringing their kids to our country for better medical treatment. So it was very emotional, and we got those people that had those special needs, and we got them on time. That was that was the tipping point, and we got it on time. So for me, inside, and now been dealing with that on the other side of the equation, it makes no difference for me. Insider risks for me, it's someone that has access to resources, access to a facility, or to data, to information, even to people. Access to something that's important and valuable enough to someone else. And this is what we do. We try to identify and help today organizations to find who are those people that can put their organization in risk. This is
Yeah.
insider threat for me.
Yeah. Do
What's
you
for you?
see, for me, look, I sort of break it down into two parts because we've got two words in this case. Who is an insider and what is a threat? So an insider, the way I've been taught, is anyone that has access to your corporate assets. So it could be anyone that is a current employee, or could be even an ex-employee. Could be a trusted business partner, contractor, a vendor that still has access to your resources somehow.
I would expect it even to everybody, like a nanny, a plumber that gets into your house is an insider threat
Correct.
if he does something
Correct.
inside your house. So it's defining your the secured or the perimeter, and whoever is within that perimeter and pose a risk in that perimeter is an insider risk. That's what I understand. So if we expand it from the corporate world, yeah.
Yes. So we've got the insider word, and then we've got the threat. So typically don't look at a person as a threat, it's just that that behavior might be perceived as a potential harm. So I tend to like talking more from a risk side, because really an organization is really trying to manage the risk, which is caused by people's behavior or actions that could cause harm to the organization. But we've often talked about that, and we've often talked about this question: why is insider threat perceived as a bad word? Why does it have in the industry sort of a bad connotation? Because we tend to look at it as, oh, we don't want to know about it, but it's valid, and not every insider threat is malicious.
Correct. Well, I think that a lot of people think where they started to hear that term insider threat or insider risk, it was from the news, from the recent, 10, 20, 30 years. In the past, people that were inside the fort and killed a king, they were insider threats. People that raped their family members, they were insider threats. People that stole from their employer, even in old times, they were insider threats. So apparently insider threat or people is the oldest problem in the world. Okay, so it was there all the time.
Correct.
In our industry, I guess in the cyber world, insider threat is more looks at someone like, for example, Edward Snowden or Julian Assange, or those big names or these big incidents, very famous incidents that everybody knows. They stole information, and that's why the connotation or the people associate insider threat as a bad word or with malicious intent. But to be honest, most of the insider threats incidents are not malicious at all. They are unintentional.
Correct.
That's because of the people. Yeah.
I think there's a rough figure of around 70% of insider incidents are non-malicious. And I think there's a confusion in the world or in the industry by and large to look at as insider threat and saying that's bad. As I mentioned, if 70% of your risk or incidents comes from accidental or unintentional, it's just a question of how do you now look at it and manage it? What do you need to do as such? Let me ask you another question. What's the typical approach by the industry to look at about mitigation?
Spending a lot of money. So basically what I see that a lot of organizations, they understand that, well, everybody manage risk, right? That's why they have doors, and that's right that they have facilities, and they're not working outside, and they have windows to their buildings, and they keep all their infrastructure safe, 20, 30, 100 meters below the ground. So organization invest a lot, I can say even fortune, in different controls and different security measures, like identity management and access controls and physical equipment, physical guards sitting and taking care of the building. They hide all the information. They put antiviruses everywhere. They try to keep their most valuable data, which is basically their business, secured. But it doesn't stop anybody from posing a risk to the organization. They're not looking at people. So people are stepping into buildings every day. Nobody knows who are they or what are their intentions. One day they are good, one day they are bad. So that's the typical approach. Let's put a lot of controls, surround the building with a lot of, it could be an armed army, but it doesn't stop someone.
Correct.
It doesn't stop the intent, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and we've seen that everywhere because, you could say, name one organization that has unlimited budget, unlimited resources, technology, people. I would say of the NSA, the National Security Agency in the US.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They have an unlimited bucket of resources, and yet they still suffer inside incidents. And we know Edward Snowden about it, but I can give you a number of examples. Like we had another guy called Harold Martin, who over a period of 25 years was taking confidential data back home. So no amount of technology that I can see really stops and addresses the behavior problem. And it's quite shocking.
I can give an example. Actually, in a company I worked before, and I'm not referring to malicious intent at all. So it was a software company. One of the development teams, they decided that the local backup service is not good enough for them. So on their own, they decided to use a free backup service on the cloud with no malicious intent at all. But in fact, they sent the IP of the company outside, and it was discovered by mistake when in one of the company meetings, they asked if they can if they can change or upgrade the existing backup system because they're not using it. So the CEO asked, so how do you back up until now? Oh, we send it to the cloud where we don't know where is the data and this is the IP. So it wasn't malicious at all. And they had good intention of taking care of the data. They just weren't aware of that. And that was a problem. They were inside the threats, although they didn't mean to.
Correct. Yeah, interesting to say. And look, Comsecure was involved. We had an incident many years ago. I think I briefly mentioned about it, but I think it's when we initially started the company, we were not so much around security, but we used to be the typical network provider. We used to set up businesses and with networks, and we had a contract with one of the government departments, and they basically had a contract for us to come and install their machines with Windows and set it up, And we had a junior employee, and someone, we went through the process of find out who he was, what's his resume, his skills, and he fitted what we needed. And his task to perform was to actually set up those systems. Well, one day, actually was a weekend, I got a call from the manager, and it was a real shock. And he said, look, I think your employees taking some of our hard drives, taking them away, stealing them.
That's bad.
I was shocked. I was absolutely, the last thing you would want to do is to cause a reputation damage by not delivering something that you promised to deliver, but make it look really bad because you're actually stealing from the client.
That can kill your business.
It killed the business with that government department.
Absolutely.
But when we confronted the problem to the employee, he said, I had to because he had a drive problem. And he was back then, disk drives used to be $1,000 each, unlike today. So he was selling those disk drives and trying to keep up his drug habit. And, who would have thought? It's not as if you go into their personal background and identify who they really are. And that's the challenge. And
imagine of your cleaner that she comes every day to clean the office. You don't know Well, you hired her because of her skills and because she does a good
Correct.
job, but you don't know what's her background. And if something happened and she, I don't know, or he sees something on the table that can be sold somewhere and that can help him or he or she, him or her, sorry, to gain some financial benefit. I look at
Yeah.
the green dot all the time. It
Yeah,
confuses me.
yeah, yeah.
So look, I have another example, and it's a story of a friend. He was contracted with another team of three to implement a payroll system in one of the big four consulting companies in the world, and they
Yes,
were
yes.
hired by them for about 6 months or something like that. Now, my friend told me that one day, while they're working, his colleague downloaded the entire payroll list, and he was Sunday he was surprising me with a question. Hey, why are you earn more than me while we're doing the same job? And my friend was really embarrassed, but he didn't know what to do. But he noticed that the guy downloaded the list. Now the problem is they were given the keys. They were had the
Correct.
privilege
Yes.
to do that. Now this guy had, well, it was revealed after, he had a marriage problems. He was going through a divorce. He had a drinking problem. He was disappearing from work long hours during the day to the nearest pub, and he took that list. They discovered that only after the one of his managers received an anonymous email claiming for blackmailing him, asking for money to another account somewhere in one of the of the tax refuge islands. And apparently, this guy actually downloaded that list and sold it on the dark web.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So imagine that people are getting keys, and although that organization, I can promise you, is protected with all the best of breeds of name it. I don't know. I'm not familiar with all the technology, but firewalls and access controls and identity management, and his background was checked in everything. Imagine if they now double the amount of firewalls. Will it help? Or adding another 10 DLPs, will it help?
Yeah.
No. If
No.
that person is eligible to do that and it's a legitimate action, who will
Yeah.
know? That's a big
Yes.
problem.
Yeah. 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 So coming to a conclusion to this session, what do you
Yeah.
think is sort of the key takeaway that you would promote to any organization listening to you talk to this discussion? What is something that would really benefit from them taking away?
Yeah, look, wherever you are a CEO or risk officer or an employer or even a business owner, I'm sure you take care of the business and you want to make sure you be profitable and your IP is secured and everybody take care of your interests. But who's running your business? People.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if we're not looking at people, we neglect a big portion of the risk, because at the end of the day, organizations take care of the business and protect it, but protect it and ask yourself from who? And if the
Correct.
risk comes from people, you should look at people first, not on systems and data. And this is
Yeah.
a very common problem today in the industry.
I love the story that you often talk about. You know, an organization is a group, a collection of people with a shared vision and a goal. But if you
Yeah,
take the people away, what have you got? You've got
there
no,
is no business.
no, exactly. And I often talk about one of your metaphors about having a child and a knife in a small room, and we can see there's a potential risk. If you take one of those two items, there's no risk. So for me, it's about the organization realizing that irrespective of how secure they think they are, there's always a risk because it's about people. And people behaviors change depending what they bring with them on a daily basis. If they're going through a divorce, if they've got money problems, or their drug habits, as I mentioned, that's going to reflect different on a day-to-day basis. I think
Of
organizations by
course.
and large assume that people are doing the right thing, they're trustworthy, that come and do the job, and this is, I suppose, given. But I see what organizations are turning a blind eye and saying, well, we don't have this problem right here. That problem exists somewhere else.
But that's fine. That's funny, boss, because we sat in front of many CEOs and they said, we are a big happy family, but we don't allow this and that, and we block this and that, and we restrict people to this and that. So why do you have all these controls if you do think you are a big happy family? So you feel comfortable now when you have all these controls around you. But think again, what is your biggest fear? Why do you have these controls? Because of people. So don't forget that people can take your business and fly to the sky, and make it very profitable. But there is another side to that coin, and everybody manages risk. The question is, do you know, or do you tuck your head in the sand, or you look at the risk in the eye and say, well, we don't ignore that, or we acknowledge that people can take the business down. It take even one person to take the business down. Have you ever wondered who holds the keys to your, golden chest?
Correct. Yeah. So with that, look, that's been great. That's sort of a first session. Look, if you've got any comments or feedback, we also would love to hear what sort of topics you would like us to talk. In a fortnight time, we're going to run this same session. I can't remember the dates, but Sean will send an invite and I'll send some invites. And the topic of that conversation will be what type of insider threat types there are, which I'm sure you know most of them, but there's one type of insider threat type, one that you don't know about, and it's happening in your own business right now. So that's what we're going to be talking about the next time. So stay tuned.
So
Thank
just
you
to
very much.
mention that this session will be recorded, will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, Subasai channel.
Yep.
Use the subscribe button below. Like us if you like it, and I'll be more than happy to hear from you. And mate, we'll see you the next time. I look forward
Sounds like a good idea. And cheers and l'chaim to you.
Cheers, mate. And happy weekend.
Oh, that's good. I have to open up. It's a bit too early.
Cheers, buddy.
Dude, see you next time.
Bye.